The golden rule of grappling is this: I want to get on top and I want to stay on top. Now this could be for sport, this could be for self-defense, this could be for law enforcement. If I end up on top of somebody, especially if I'm smaller than them, I need to understand how to hold this person down, again, for whatever the reason is. There's three things that I need to kind of pay attention to. Number one, I need to isolate limbs. Number two, I need to shift my weight accordingly. And number three, I need to make sure that I flow with it. So if we're talking about limb isolation, right? I don't want to fight this guy. If this guy's bigger and stronger than me, I don't want to just sit here and try and squeeze, because I'm giving him the ability to just kind of bench press me off. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going to launch me, but it's going to be very difficult for me to hold a stronger, bigger person down if they're just simply just bench pressing me off. Again, they have that strength over me. So the first thing is I want to start focusing on isolating limbs. Now the way that we do that, again, if we end up in mount, and we'll start from mount, but I'm just talking top position in general. In mount, I want to make sure that I scoop and control the head. Now, I'm not trying to scoop the neck. If I scoop the neck, he's still able to post on his head, and if he can post on his head, that means he can bridge and pop his hips, which again, is going to make it very difficult for me to hold this person down. So when I'm scooping the head, I need to literally scoop at the head. Now, for whatever reason, if he's driving his head down tight and I can't get my hand there, then I can go to the neck and then walk my arm up a little bit. But ideally, I want to get like right behind the base of the skull. Now, if I can kind of double scoop here a little bit, it makes it a little bit more difficult for this person to bump their hips. Trust me, they still will, but it's not going to be as powerful as compared to when they're able to kind of bridge. Again, we're trying to eliminate their ability to use strength so that I can hold this person down in an easier manner. So the first part, scooping the head. Number two, I need to start isolating these limbs. Even if I can just get one arm, this is going to make a difference. Doesn't matter if it's in this way, if it's up here, it's however I have it. Isolating one limb, again, makes it difficult for him to post off my hips, makes it difficult for him to try and frame or do anything to start creating space, which is what he wants to do. Ideally, if I can focus on isolating both arms and the head, this is a very good position to be in. Now again, he can still bump his hips like crazy, he can still work on bringing his arms down, and because we're talking about dealing with a bigger person, I'm not necessarily gonna be able to hold this down the entire time. He might start dropping those elbows, and over time, I'm gonna lose that position, and if I don't adjust to the other two areas that we need to focus on, he's going to immediately start pressing, framing, doing what he needs to do, and he's going to create that space and get out. But isolating the limbs is the first thing. So again, when you get into a top position of any sort, in this case mount, right away, I'm going to isolate the head. I'm going to start focusing on isolating the limbs, however, which way I can do that. And now I'm in a good place to start kind of working from there. Now, the second aspect of this is I have to shift my weight accordingly. And to do this, I want you to kind of think about like a sandbag motion, meaning that no matter how he pushes me, I'm shifting my weight accordingly. Now, typically, let's say he's pushing at my hips. I'll see a lot of newer guys, if they're driving at your hips, they're gonna push back with those hips, and I'm fighting the hip to hip. So as he's driving those hips and I push back, eventually I'm giving him the ability to actually start using that resistance to start creating space and ultimately start framing out. So it's kind of counterintuitive, right? So the idea is this: if he's pushing at my hips, instead of fighting the hips back, I'm gonna let him have the hips, but I'm gonna take my chest and I'm gonna sink my chest in. So now the more that he pushes at the hips, the more my chest pressure is driving down into his head, into his chest, makes it extremely uncomfortable. Now if he switches and he starts driving up at my chest, I'm gonna drive my hips in. And I'm just shifting the weight like a sandbag. If he pushes the sand up high, the sand's gonna shift down and I'm driving the weight down below. Vice versa, he switches back, the pressure's gonna come right back here. If he pushes it to one side, I'm gonna sink those hips or whatever I need to do, I'm gonna sink it all accordingly and just constantly be focusing on shifting the weight. Again, I'm trying to eliminate his ability to use his strength. If I just resist everything that he's doing, again, he's gonna use that resistance to start framing and start creating space. So I have to make sure that I adjust everything accordingly. And again, if we tie it back into number one, as I'm shifting my weight accordingly, I'm also using that opportunity to continue to isolate and control the limbs. Now, the third area that we need to focus on is I need to flow with it, meaning if I feel that I can no longer stay in mount, again, you're not gonna be able to all the time. If I can't stay here anymore, if he's really driving and I can't get these hips down, right? I'm not just gonna keep fighting this, because eventually if I get stubborn, I'm like, I'm determined, he's gonna get it off, he's gonna end up on top. And again, we're losing that golden rule of grappling of we need to stay on top. So instead, I'm just going to change positions. Now, I might kind of give the resistance to go ahead and bump the hips again. I might resist that first one, and now the second one, I'm just gonna shift out. My weight is still there, I'm still controlling the limbs, but now instead of mount, I went to knee on belly, which now means that he can no longer do the same standard mount escape because I'm no longer in mount. And now from here, I can continue to drive pressure. I can pull up and drive my knee down. I can continue to smother. I can even kind of completely shift and go to side control. But guess what? I'm still on top. And now from here, I'm in a different position, which means he now has to adjust accordingly. Now as he starts kind of defending this, maybe I come right back into mount. And now I go right back into everything else again. I isolate the limbs, I isolate the head, I do what I need to do, I shift my weight accordingly, he starts bumping like crazy, I'm losing control again, cool. I shift back off to knee and belly. I come all the way off to side control. Maybe I come all the way around to north-south. It's just the idea that I'm constantly flowing with it so that he puts all this work and effort into getting me off only for me to immediately change positions, and then right away he's got to start fresh. Now I can use that flowing method as well to better position myself. So for instance, if he's pushing off my chest, right, I'm going to kind of give him a little bit of fight back, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity, let's say, to like take his back or get to an even more dominant top control position. So as he's pushing, okay, cool, I'm going to take the outside of the arm. Now instead of me like trying to force him on his side and like muscle him, like come on, let's move, I'm going to feel that resistance. I'm going to go right behind the tricep. I'm going to relax for a split second, and as I relax, I drive this across and immediately drop my chest again. Now again, no matter how big or strong this person is, if I'm able to put my entire body behind his tricep, behind his shoulder, even if he's bigger than me, he's not going to get that arm back, because now my entire body weight is pressured into there. And again, I go right back into isolating limbs. I drive that pressure in. Now I'm not fighting strength with strength. I'm fighting position against strength. And if I have a better position, if I've got a better weight adjustment, my strength doesn't matter. At this point, I'm going to completely dominate that position. Now, because I also got here, notice how his shoulders are up the mat a little bit. I'm going to take that same side leg and I'm going to slide it up. So now I'm also preventing him from being able to turn back, which means his only option is to start turning away. And as he starts turning away, I relieve that pressure, giving him like a little exit. And as he takes that exit, I shift my weight again. Now I'm even farther behind the shoulder blade, which again is going to be very difficult for this person to push back into me. And now, again, I start isolating the limbs, scooping the head, controlling the arms, putting him into like a gift wrap position. I'm isolating his ability to frame, to post, to do anything to start creating that space again. I also start shifting my weight. I got a tight pinch on his hip here. My hips are driving into his hips. I can also put my chest behind his back if I want to. And again, I'm shifting all my weight accordingly to where now I can start controlling him. I can do damage, I can do submissions. Again, if this is sport, this is a great opportunity to look and take the back, but we have options from there. Now, again, the last part is flowing with this. So if I get here and he just manages, he's just really driving back into me, maybe I feel like his arm is loosening up a little bit, then again, I'm gonna relieve that pressure, let him go all the way back, and right away, I'm gonna shift my pressure right back down again, and I'm right back into mount. So the concept, the principle, is that anytime we're grappling, again, for sport, self-defense, anything that I need to stay on top, I should be able to stay on top and control the top at all times if I'm able to do those three things. Isolate their limbs, shift my weight accordingly. Again, think of like a sandbag method. And number three, I flow with it. If they're trying to push, if they're trying to turn, if they're trying to do anything, and again, it doesn't even have to be a post. If I feel him starting to kind of like turn this way, instead of like fighting him back, I'm gonna let him turn. And as he turns, I lift up, I come right back down. And now I just shift accordingly, and he's doing all the work for me. I'm just positioning myself where my size and positioning is going to overcome his strength. And ultimately, if you can do those concepts, if you can work all three of those interchangeably together, you should be able to dominate any sort of top position. Again, sport, self-defense, it doesn't matter. You should be able to be on top and stay on top. Stay safe.